The sound of a child's scream cut through the hum of the engines at 30,000 feet high. Sharp and full of terror. Passengers turned in their seats, craning their necks toward the aisle, where my little girl clutched her shoulder, blood seeping through her favorite pink shirt. Standing over her was a woman in expensive clothes, a twisted smile on her face, gripping a metal pen like it was some kind of trophy. Before watching full story, comment below from where you are watching. Also, like and subscribe for more stories. I was the pilot of that flight, the father of the little girl who had just been attacked, and in that moment, trapped behind the locked cockpit door, I felt the most powerless I've ever felt in my life. 15 years of flying commercial aircraft had taught me how to handle engine failures, emergency landings in violent storms, and turbulence that could rattle the calmest passenger. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for hearing that someone had deliberately harmed my 7-year-old daughter while I was just a few steps away, flying the very plane she was trapped on. What was supposed to be the happiest trip of her young life, a long-awaited journey to Disney World, had instantly become a nightmare, and the person who caused it wasn't a stranger from nowhere. She was our neighbor, a woman who had been tormenting my family for years. The aisle of the first-class cabin was chaos. Passengers gasped and shouted, some scrambling for their phones, others trying to shield their children from the sight. My daughter, my Lily, was curled in her seat, tears streaming down her cheeks, her tiny hands trying in vain to cover the wound. The blood was bright against her pale skin, spreading fast, and the woman who had done it, she didn't look shocked. She didn't look sorry. She looked satisfied. Her name was Karen Blackwood, though at that moment she might as well have been a villain pulled straight from a nightmare. She stood there gripping that pen, her eyes cold and unblinking, as if stabbing a child mid-flight was the most natural thing in the world. Dachica Rodriguez, the lead flight attendant, was the first to reach Lily. She dropped to her knees, without hesitation, pressing a wad of gauze from the medical kit against my daughter's shoulder. You're okay, sweetheart. I've got you, she whispered, her voice steady despite the horror in her eyes. In the cockpit, my headset crackled to life. Captain Mitchell, Jessica's voice came through, tight with urgency. Your daughter's been injured. Another passenger stabbed her with a pen. She's bleeding heavily. We need to declare a medical emergency. The words hit me like a punch to the chest. For a split second, I forgot to breathe. My little girl had been attacked, and I couldn't even open the cockpit door without risking the lives of everyone on board. I forced out, my knuckles white around the controls. It's Karen Blackwood. From your neighborhood? Of course it was. I'd seen her face in 100 unpleasant HOA meetings, heard her voice in endless petty complaints. But never, not even in my worst imaginings, I think she was capable of this. In the cabin, passengers were closing in on her, shouting, demanding to know why she had hurt a child. Karen's reply was as chilling as it was absurd. She had it coming. That's when I knew this wasn't some random act of rage. This was planned. This woman had boarded my flight with one goal in mind, to hurt my daughter. And now, with the engines roaring and the sky stretching endlessly beyond the windows, there was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, and no way to turn back. Just 24 hours before, everything had been perfect. Lily and I had been packing our suitcases, carefully folding our matching Mickey Mouse t-shirts and placing her favorite plush mini right on top. This trip had been our light at the end of a very long, very dark tunnel. 6 months earlier, cancer had taken my wife, Sarah. It was a slow, brutal fight, one that drained every ounce of strength from her body, but never dimmed the kindness in her eyes. Lily was only 7, too young to fully understand death, but old enough to feel its weight every single day. She had watched her mama fade away in a hospital bed, her tiny hands clutching Sarah's fingers while doctors and nurses bustled around them. After Sarah passed, our home became quieter, heavier. Even the sunlight felt dimmer. Lily would crawl into my lap at night and whisper, when will mama come back? I never had a good answer. This trip to Disney World was supposed to be our reset button, our chance to make new memories that could live alongside the sad ones. I'd planned it down to the last detail: her hotel room with a perfect view of Cinderella's castle, dinner reservations with her favorite Disney princesses, fast passes for every ride she'd dreamed of trying. Lily had been counting down the days on a colorful calendar she'd made herself. Each morning she'd cross off another square and say, Daddy, it's almost magic time. She's the kind of kid who makes everyone around her smile without even trying. Paulette to strangers, always sharing her toys, always ready with a thank you even when she's upset. Small for her age, with blonde curls that bounce when she walks and green eyes that seem to catch every bit of light in the room. She loves butterflies because they look like angels, and ice cream because Mama said sprinkles make everything better. That morning, I walked her to her first-class seat, kissed the top of her head, and told her I'd see her the second we landed. Airline policy kept me in the cockpit during flights, so I'd arranged for 2 experienced flight attendants, Jessica and Maria, to check on her throughout the trip. They set her up with coloring books, juice, and a soft blanket. By all accounts, she was perfectly happy, quietly coloring, smiling at everyone, and asking Jessica about how airplanes worked, that it should have been a peaceful, uneventful 4-hour flight. But I had no idea that in coach sat the one person in the world who hated us enough to ruin everything. Karen Blackwood wasn't just a passenger. She was our neighbor from the Sunset Hills HOA, place where manicured lawns and white fences masked the ugliness that brewed beneath. From the moment we moved in, she made it clear she didn't want us there. It started small, complaints about our grass being half an inch too long, or our trash cans being visible for more than 10 minutes after pickup. Then it got personal. She once reported Lily's pink bicycle parked in our own driveway as an eyesore. That lowered property values. When Sarah began chemo and lost her hair, Karen had the audacity to suggest she wear a wig so the neighborhood doesn't look depressing. The day of Sarah's funeral, when friends and family filled our street with cars to pay their respects, Karen complained to the HOA board about the disruption. But her cruelty didn't stop there. 3 weeks before our trip, Lily had been playing in the backyard with our new golden retriever puppy, Hope, a therapy dog I'd adopted to help her heal. Hope was lying quietly under a tree, yet Karen stormed over to the fence, claiming the dog was ruining her meditation time. When I calmly told her Hope barely barked, she fixed me with that icy stare and said, "That child needs to stop acting like a victim. Death is part of life. She's old enough to deal with it without disturbing everyone else." It took every ounce of restraint not to tell her exactly what I thought of someone who could speak that way about a grieving child. So when she somehow found out about our Disney trip, I should have known trouble was coming, but I didn't realize how far she'd go. Through her real estate connections, she dug up our flight details and unbelievably booked herself on the same plane. 2 neighbors. She joked about teaching that brat some manners and showing the pilot he's not special. The night before we left, she even called my house. In a sickly sweet tone, she said, "Airplanes can be tricky for kids. Sometimes they need firm guidance from adults who know how to keep order." It wasn't just a veiled threat, it was a promise. The morning of the flight, I ran through my pre-flight checklist like I'd done hundreds of times before: fuel levels, weather reports, safety protocols. My co-pilot, Captain Roberts, was in his seat, reviewing the route to Orlando. Everything was routine. Then Jessica stepped into the cockpit with the passenger manifest. "Captain," she said, "we've got an unaccompanied minor in first-class seat to a, I believe that's your daughter." I nodded, smiling despite myself. "That's Lily, keep her full of cookies and juice, and she'll be your easiest passenger today." Jessica's smile faltered. "There's also a woman in coach who, well, she's been asking questions about your daughter. Specific ones: where she's sitting, if she can move around the cabin, how long the flight is." It was odd. The moment she described her short, gray hair, cold blue eyes, expensive clothes, I felt my stomach drop. Karen Blackwood. "Of course, listen carefully," I told Jessica, my voice sharper than I intended. "That woman is our neighbor. She's been harassing my family for years. Keep her away from Lily at all costs. If she tries to get near her, you come straight to me." Jessica promised to watch Lily closely, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. To her, this probably sounded like some petty neighborhood feud. She didn't yet understand that Karen wasn't just difficult, she was dangerous. The first 3 hours of the flight passed peacefully. Jessica kept me updated over the interphone. Lily was coloring pictures of Mickey Mouse, eating animal crackers, giggling at the in-flight safety video. She even helped Jessica hand out extra pillows too. Passengers meanwhile, in coach, Karen was biding her time. Witnesses would later say she barely touched her drink, never opened a book or watched the movie. She just sat there, watching, studying, waiting. She memorized the cruise routines when the flight attendants were in the galley, how long drink service took, where the medical kit was stored. It was the behavior of someone planning a strike, not just passing time on a flight. I had no idea that my warnings to Jessica hadn't been enough. I had no idea that Karen had already stolen a heavy metal pen from the business class amenity kit during a trip to the lavatory, a pen sharp enough to pierce skin. The timing of what came next was deliberate, calculated to the second. Because while Jessica and Maria were in the galley, preparing the next round of beverages, Karen rose from her seat and headed straight for Tua. Karen approached Lily with a smile so fake it could have been painted on. "Well, hello there," she cooed, loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. "I recognize you from the neighborhood." Lily, being the polite child her mama raised, smiled back. "Hi." Karen leaned in. "You know, little girl, your daddy's an important man, flying this airplane. Some children might get so excited, they cause problems. We wouldn't want anything bad to happen because you couldn't control yourself, would we?" Lily's brows knitted in confusion. "I'm being good," she said softly. "I'm staying in my seat like Daddy told me." The kindness drained from Karen's face, replaced by something sharp and cruel. She lowered her voice so only Lily and a few nearby passengers could hear. "You think you're special because your daddy's the pilot? You think the world revolves around you because your mommy's dead? Let's see how special you feel after this." Before anyone could react, Karen yanked the pen from her pocket and drove it into Lily's shoulder with shocking force. The scream that followed cut straight through me. Even in the cockpit, it wasn't just panic, it was fear, betrayal, confusion. The sound of innocence being ripped apart. Blood blossomed across her shirt. Karen pulled the pen back, gripping it like a trophy. "That's what happens to children who don't know their place," she announced, her voice dripping with satisfaction. Passengers erupted, some shouting, others scrambling to reach Lily. A man in the row ahead jumped to his feet, blocking Karen's path as she tried to step back. Jessica sprinted from the galley, dropping to her knees beside Lily. "Sweetheart, you're okay," she said, pressing gauze to the wound. Her hands were steady, but her voice shook. In the cockpit, the interphone buzzed. "Captain Mitchell." Jessica's voice came through, urgent and tight. "Your daughter's been stabbed by Karen Blackwood. She's bleeding badly. We need to declare a medical emergency." For a moment, I couldn't speak. My mind was screaming at me to get up, to break protocol, to run to her. But my training chained me to the controls. I had 180 other souls on board depending on me. "Divert to the nearest trauma facility," I told Roberts, my co-pilot, forcing my voice to stay even. "Alert ATC. Have law enforcement and medics meet us at the gate." Behind me, chaos still churned. Karen was shouting over the passengers, defending her actions as if stabbing a child was some sort of moral duty. And I knew this was far from over. My hands were locked around the yoke, but every muscle in my body was screaming to get up. I could hear Roberts relaying our emergency to air traffic control, his voice steady, professional. Mine not so much. "Medical emergency on board. Minor stabbed in first class. Request immediate diversion to the nearest trauma-capable facility." Every second felt like an hour. The thought of my little girl hurt, scared, bleeding just feet away but unreachable, was a torment I wouldn't wish on anyone. My job as captain demanded I think about every passenger. My job as a father demanded I think about only one. "Severity?" I asked, my voice strained. "She's losing blood, but Jessica's got pressure on it," Roberts replied. "She's conscious." Talking that gave me a sliver of relief, but it didn't quiet the storm raging in my chest. Then Jessica came back on the interphone. "Captain Karen's telling passengers she was teaching Lily a lesson. She's bragging about it. Bragging about stabbing a child." I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt. "Make sure she's restrained," I said through my teeth, "and Jessica, let her anywhere near my daughter again." "Already done," she said. "A couple of passengers are holding her in the aisle." She's still talking loudly. As Roberts coordinated with ATC for a diversion to Kansas City International, I caught fragments of Karen's voice bleeding through the cabin PA system from the open interphone channel. "Some kids think the world owes them something," she was saying. "Her daddy thinks he's special. Maybe now they'll both learn their place." Every word was gasoline on the fire inside me, but the controls in my hands were a lifeline, a reminder that I had to land this plane safely. I couldn't let rage pull me out of my role. Not yet. We began our descent, the engines throttling back. My mind raced not about the approach speed or the weather, but about the image of my daughter's green eyes clouded with pain and confusion. I imagined her small voice calling for me, wondering why I wasn't there. I swallowed the lump in my throat and focused on the landing checklist. One thing at a time. Get the wheels on the ground. Get to Lily. Then make sure Karen never saw daylight outside a cell again, even restrained in the aisle. Karen wouldn't stop talking. Witnesses later told me she seemed almost proud, like she'd accomplished something worth celebrating. "That brat had it coming," she told a man in the row across from her. "She thinks she's untouchable because her father's the pilot." I fixed that. Mrs. Chen, a retired school teacher sitting nearby, had the presence of mind to pull out her phone and start recording. "Ma'am," she said, "you just stabbed a grieving child." She was sitting quietly. She wasn't bothering anyone. Karen actually smirked. "Kids need discipline. If her mother's gone, someone has to step in." Gasps rippled through the cabin. One passenger muttered, "Is she serious right now?" Another woman started crying. Jessica moved through the chaos like a shield, kneeling beside Lily, keeping pressure on the wound, murmuring reassurances. She wouldn't let Karen anywhere near her. Dr. Amanda Foster, a pediatric surgeon from Children's Hospital Colorado who happened to be on board, came forward. After a quick examination, she told Jessica the wound was deep but had missed any major arteries or nerves. "She needs stitches," Dr. Foster said, "but she's going to be okay." That last part, "she's going to be okay," was the first thread of hope I'd had since the call came in. Meanwhile, passengers kept their phones trained on Karen. Every ugly word, every ounce of venom she spewed, was being captured. She didn't even try to hide her face. When one man told her she was lucky the pilot couldn't come back there, she actually laughed. "Oh, I know, he's probably fuming up there. But he can't touch me, federal rules and all." That was the moment I silently promised myself those rules would get her arrested, prosecuted, and convicted, and I'd be in the front row to watch it happen. Jessica stayed crouched beside Lily, her navy uniform pressed into the aisle carpet as she kept the gauze firmly against my daughter's shoulder. "You're so brave, sweetheart," she murmured, brushing a curl from Lily's tear-streaked face. We're getting you help right now. Your daddy's flying us to the doctors as fast as he can." Lily's breathing was fast and shallow. Her lips trembled. I didn't do anything bad," she whispered. "I was just coloring like Daddy said." "You didn't do anything wrong," Jessica said firmly. "The bad lady made a terrible choice. That's on her, not you." Dr. Foster knelt on Lily's other side, snapping on latex gloves from the medical kit. She spoke softly, explaining each step. "This might sting, but I'm just cleaning it to keep it safe from germs." She worked quickly, professional hands steady, but her eyes were full of the same quiet rage I felt boiling in my chest. "She need about a dozen stitches," Dr. Foster told Jessica under her breath, "but she's stable. Keep her still." Meanwhile, Karen kept spewing venom from her restrained position. "If she cries over a little scratch, maybe she'll think twice before acting like she's the center of the universe." A young man in the row ahead finally snapped. "Lady, you're lucky the pilot's not back here, because if it were my kid," Jessica cut him off sharply. "Sir, please, focus on keeping your seat. Law enforcement will handle her." Lily's small hand gripped Jessica's wrist. "Can Daddy come here?" Jessica swallowed hard. "He's making sure the airplane gets us to the doctors fast. He's keeping you safe." In the cockpit, those words tore through me. I could hear bits of the conversation over the open channel, Lily asking for me, Jessica trying to comfort her. My hands were steady on the controls, but my heart was a storm. The descent felt endless. I pushed for every shortcut, every priority clearance ATC could give me. My only thought, get her on the ground, into an ambulance, away from that woman. Behind me, passengers were working together to keep Karen pinned in place. Every attempt she made to twist free was met with firm hands on her shoulders. And all the while, she kept talking like she wanted the whole cabin to hear just how little she regretted what she'd done. Kansas City International came into view like a lifeline. The control tower cleared us for immediate landing. Priority. Over every other aircraft in the area, I could feel the vibration of the flaps deploying, the nose dipping toward the runway. "Hang in there, baby girl," I murmured under my breath. Roberts called out the final approach checklist, but my mind was already at the gate, already running toward her. The wheels kissed the runway with a thud. Reverse thrusters roared. We slowed fast, the runway lights flickering past in a blur. The moment we turned off toward the gate, I could see them flashing red and blue lights of waiting emergency vehicles. Paramedics lined up at the jet bridge, federal agents in dark jackets standing beside them. I set the parking brake, shut down the engines, and handed control to Roberts. "I'm going to her," I said, my voice low and tight. The cockpit door opened and I moved faster than I've ever moved in my life, my shoes pounding down the narrow aisle. The sight that met me made my chest ache. Jessica still crouched on the floor, her hand steady over Lily's bandaged shoulder, and my little girl's eyes going wide the second she saw me. "Daddy," she cried, holding out her uninjured arm. I dropped to my knees beside her, careful not to jostle the bandage. "I'm here, baby. I'm here now. You did nothing wrong, do you hear me? Nothing. She hurt me. Daddy," Lily sobbed, her face pressed into my shirt. I was being good, but she said bad things about Mama. My throat burned. I kissed the top of her head, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. "Mama would be so proud of you. You were so brave." The paramedics stepped forward, their gear bags open. "We've got her, Captain," one of them said gently. "We'll keep you with her all the way to the hospital." As they lifted her carefully into a stretcher, my eyes locked on Karen. She was standing near the back of the cabin, wrists cuffed in front of her, flanked by 2 federal air marshals. She didn't look ashamed. She didn't look scared. She looked annoyed, like this was some kind of inconvenience. One of the marshals glanced at me as they started walking her down the aisle. "Sir, she'll be charged before the end of the day." Karen caught my eye and gave the smallest smirk. That smirk was gone the second the marshals pushed her through the jet bridge into the waiting arms of FBI agents. The sight of her being led away in handcuffs should have felt like victory. But in that moment, victory wasn't my goal. My only mission was keeping my daughter safe, her small hand clutching mine as we followed the paramedics into the ambulance. The ambulance ride was a blur of sirens and flashing lights. I sat beside Lily on the stretcher, one arm wrapped gently around her so I wouldn't disturb the bandages. Every bump in the road made her wince, and every wince cut into me like a blade. "Are we going to be okay now?" she asked quietly, her green eyes searching mine. "We already are," I said, brushing a curl from her forehead. "The bad lady can't hurt you anymore." At the hospital, we were met by a team of nurses and a trauma doctor who moved with swift precision. They got her into a treatment room, clipped the fabric of her bloodied shirt away, and began prepping. 4 stitches. I stayed by her side, holding her small hand in both of mine. "It's going to pinch a little," the doctor warned gently, "but we'll be quick, and you'll have a special bandage that looks way cooler than any sticker." Lily sniffled but nodded bravely. "Okay." She squeezed my hand tight as the needle went in. Her lips trembled, but she didn't cry. I whispered to her the whole time stories about our postponed Disney trip, about the ice cream shop we'd go to once she was all healed. After the 12th and final stitch, the doctor patted her shoulder carefully. No permanent damage. She's lucky, and she's tough. Lily glanced at the white bandage now covering the wound. It's my brave mark, she said softly. I smiled, though my chest still felt heavy. That's exactly what it is. When the nurses stepped out to get her a juice box, she looked at me again. Why did she hurt me, Daddy? I didn't do anything bad. I took a deep breath, because this was the question I'd been dreading. Some people, they carry so much meanness inside that they want to hurt others, even good people. It doesn't make sense, and it's not your fault. She was quiet for a moment. Will she try again? Never, I said firmly. She's with the police now, and the law will make sure she can't come near you ever again. Her eyes softened, and she rested her head against my arm. Okay, can I have sprinkles on my ice cream later? That was the first moment I felt my heart unclench just a little. Sprinkles on everything, I promised. The investigation moved faster than I ever imagined. By the time Lily was resting in her hospital bed, federal agents were already interviewing passengers, collecting statements, and downloading video evidence from multiple phones, and there was plenty. By Mrs. Chen's recording captured smug confession in crystal clear detail, her mocking comments about Sarah's death, her justification for stabbing a grieving child, and her complete lack of remorse. 2 other passengers had filmed the actual moment she raised the pen and drove it into Lily's shoulder. Dr. Foster provided a medical statement, confirming the wound was consistent with a deliberate, forceful stabbing. Every witness said the same thing. Lily had been sitting quietly, coloring in her book. She hadn't moved from her seat, hadn't caused any disruption. The attack was unprovoked. The FBI didn't hesitate. Karen was charged with assault on a minor or aggravated assault on an aircraft terroristic, threats endangering the safety of a commercial flight federal hate crime enhancement due to her targeted harassment of a grieving child. When they sat her down for questioning, she didn't crack. In fact, she doubled down. She needed discipline, she told them. Her daddy thinks being a pilot makes him better than everyone else. Someone had to put them in their place. An agent asked her point blank, if you were on another flight with her tomorrow, would you do the same thing? Her answer was instant. Yes, that sealed it. There would be no plea deal, no reduced sentence. I was given regular updates from the lead investigator, who seemed as outraged as I was. Captain, he told me, I've worked some bad cases, but this one sticks. We're going to make sure she never gets the chance to hurt another child. For the first time since the attack, I felt a sense of momentum, like the system was actually working, building a case so airtight she wouldn't be able to wriggle out of it with excuses or fake remorse. But there was still the trial to get through, and that meant reliving every moment of that flight in excruciating detail. The courtroom was packed. Word of the case had spread. HOA neighbor stabs pilot's daughter mid-flight made national headlines. Reporters filled the back rows, their pens ready, cameras waiting. Karen walked in wearing a bland beige suit, her hair pulled back so tight it looked painful. She didn't glance at me. She didn't glance at Lily. Her expression was the same mask of disdain I'd seen at countless HOA meetings. The prosecution opened with the video. Mrs. Chen's recording filled the room. Karen's own voice, crystal clear. Her mother is dead, so someone has to discipline her properly. Maybe now she'll think twice before acting entitled. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Karen just sat there, arms crossed. One by one, the witnesses took the stand. Passengers described her stalking the aisle, her cruel words, the deliberate thrust of the pen. Dr. Foster explained the injury, and how easily it could have been fatal if the angle had shifted by even a few centimeters. Then came Lily's recorded testimony, conducted by a child psychologist in a safe, neutral setting. I was coloring. Her small voice said through the speakers. She said bad things about my mama. Then she hurt me with something sharp. I didn't know why. I thought maybe I did something wrong, but the doctor lady said it wasn't my fault. Not a single person in that room was dried, not even the court reporter. The judge had to pause for a moment before continuing. The defense tried to paint Karen as under extreme emotional stress, claiming she had suffered a temporary lapse in judgment, but the prosecution tore that apart with her own words. They could have played the FBI interrogation footage where she said, without hesitation, that she would do it again. This was no lapse, the prosecutor said in closing arguments. This was premeditated cruelty. She booked herself on that flight specifically to harm a grieving child. She stalked her, waited for the crew to be distracted, and attacked her. And when confronted, she bragged about it. The jury took less than 3 hours to return their verdict, guilty on all counts. During sentencing, the judge looked Karen straight in the eye. Mrs. Blackwood, he said, his voice measured but laced with disgust. In 25 years on this bench, I have seen acts of violence born of anger, desperation, even madness. But what you did stands out for its cold, calculated cruelty. You targeted an innocent, grieving child. You inflicted physical and emotional harm for no reason other than to gratify your own malice. He handed down the maximum, 8 years in federal prison, 5 years of supervised probation, full restitution for Lily's medical and therapy costs, and perhaps most satisfying, a lifetime ban from all commercial flights. Karen didn't flinch. She didn't cry. She simply turned her head toward me as she was led away and muttered something under her breath. I couldn't hear. It didn't matter. Her voice was gone. The gavel had fallen. And for the first time since that terrible day, I felt like justice had truly been served. The weeks after the trial felt different. The constant knot in my chest was loosening. Karen was behind bars. The restraining order was permanent. For the first time in a long time, I could take Lily to the park without scanning every face. In the crowd, the HOA expelled Karen from the neighborhood the moment the verdict was read. They sent a formal letter of apology to my family and rewrote community rules to include a strict anti-harassment policy. For once, those manicured lawns and picket fences didn't feel like the walls of a prison. Lily's physical recovery was quicker. Stitches came out in just over a week, leaving behind a thin, pale line on her shoulder. She called it her brave mark and would sometimes trace it with her finger when she talked about that day. But the emotional healing, that took longer. Therapy sessions helped. At first, she was shy, speaking only in short answers. But over time, she opened up, talking about the fear she'd felt, the confusion, and how she still sometimes dreamed she was back on that plane. We postponed our Disney trip, of course. But 8 months later, when the shadows of that day had faded just enough, we boarded another flight. This time, Lily sat beside me in the cockpit before takeoff, wide-eyed as she looked over the controls. I explained what each button did, and when we landed in Orlando, she looked up at me with a grin that felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. Disney World was everything I'd hoped it would be for her. Laughter rides, character hugs, way too much ice cream. At night, when the fireworks lit up the sky over Cinderella's castle, she squeezed my hand and said, "We made it, Daddy." And we had. Karen served her full sentence. 2 years ago, she was released under strict probation, banned from flying, still required to undergo therapy and anger management. She lost her real estate license, her home, and most of her savings. Actions, it turned out, really did have consequences. Lily is 10 now, bright, resilient, and braver than most adults I know. She still has that scar, and sometimes she tell people, "That's where I fought off a bad guy," though we both know the truth is she simply survived something terrible. And surviving, sometimes, is the bravest act of all. We never saw Karen again, and that's exactly how I want it, because this chapter of our lives is closed, locked, and thrown into the deepest part of the ocean. The world still has its care, but it also has Jessica's, Dr. Foster's, Mrs. Chin's, people who stand up, speak out, and protect the innocent. And that's the part I want my daughter to remember most. Evil came for my daughter at 30,000 feet. It came wearing designer clothes, and a smile that hid nothing but malice. And for a moment, I thought it might win. But evil didn't win. Justice did. Courage did. And a 7-year-old girl with a brave mark on her shoulder did. Karen Blackwood learned the hard way that some mistakes can never be undone. And some victims have fathers who will never stop fighting for them. Lily's scar will always be there, but so will her laughter, her resilience, and the unshakable truth that the world still holds more good than bad. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this: no matter how high the altitude, you protect your own, and you make damn sure the ones who try to hurt them never get a second chance.